Good morning, students. Here I am with one more video of class 9. Today we are going to conclude the chapter in the poem, A Legend of the Northland. So before we move to the poem, I would like to discuss a few more things which we discussed in the last class. So as I told you, this poem is a story, is a legend, is an old classical story, and the story is from Northland, a place to which this particular story belongs. It is Northland, which is situated in the distant part of North Pole. And this particular story is all about a saint whose name is Saint Peter. Saint Peter is the central character in this story, and the story is of a Saint Peter and an old greedy woman. Okay, so how that particular old greedy woman provoked Saint Peter for a piece of cake, and what is the consequence of that particular thing? The story is all about that. Okay, there is some significance of Northland. The Northland is a place which is extreme cold. In winter season, the nights are so long in Northland that people cannot sleep throughout the night, and the days are quite short in the Northland. So since it is a snowy area, so people used to use sledges, which was drawn by reindeer. Okay, and few more things, and finally we come to know that Saint Peter was traveled around the world. He was preaching the message of Jesus Christ among mankind. So in that way, on a particular day, he went to a cottage where a woman was making cake at that point of time, and Saint Peter was at fasting on those days. So he was quite hungry. That is why he asked the woman to give him a piece of cake. But the woman, not able to part with her cake, she baked one after another cake, but each time, when it's time to give it to Saint Peter, she found the cake too big to part with. And what would happen after that, we are going to discuss today. Another important thing is that, through this particular poem, today we will come to know the story behind woodpecker bird. How the woodpecker bird came to this art, we can know through this particular poem today. Okay, so let's see. So Saint Peter was quite angry at the woman, and now what Saint Peter is going to do? And he said, "You are far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have food, to have both food and shelter and fire to keep you warm." So out of anger, Saint Peter told the woman that you are too selfish to get human beings' life. God has given you everything. God has given you a home to take shelter, water, and even fire to get your body warm in such winter condition. But despite of having so many things, you are too selfish that you don't deserve to live a human being's life. Saint Peter ইমানেই খং উঠি গ'ল যে মহিলাগৰাকীয়ে ক'লে যে মানুহৰ জীৱন ধাৰণ কৰিবৰ কাৰণে তুমি জোখতকৈ বেছি স্বাৰ্থপৰ। ভগৱানে তোমাক সকলো দিছে, তোমাক থাকিবলৈ ঘৰ দিছে, তোমাক পিয়াহ গুচাবৰ কাৰণে তোমাক পানী দিছে, আহাৰ দিছে, আনকি এই ঠাণ্ডাত নিজৰ শৰীৰটোক গৰম কৰি ৰাখিবৰ কাৰণে তোমাক কি দিছে? জুই প্ৰদান কৰিছে। কিন্তু ইমানখিনি বস্তু পোৱাৰ পিছতো তুমি লৈছাহে সকলোবিলাক। As a human being, you are taking all those facilities, all those benefits. গোটেইবিলাক সুবিধা লৈছা, কিন্তু তুমি কাকো একো দিব নোৱাৰা। You can't give anything to a person. So you don't deserve to live human beings' life. গতিকে মানুহৰ জীৱন জীয়াৰ তোমাৰ কি নাই আচলতে অধিকাৰ নাই. You don't have the moral right to live human being. Now you shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring all day in the hard dry wood. So now Saint Peter cursed the woman. In those days, the saint had some supernatural power within themselves. They can do anything. They have so much soul force within themselves that whatever they wish, that thing come out to be a true one. তেওঁলোকে যিটো ইচ্ছা কৰে সেই বস্তুটো কি হৈ যায় সঁচা হৈ যায়. But they had the power to curse people. মানুহক তেওঁলোকে they can bless people as well as they can curse people. তো কোনোবাই যদি ভাল কাম কৰে তেওঁলোকে তেওঁলোকক কি দিয়ে কন্যাশীক তেওঁলোকক আশীৰ্বাদ দিয়ে. কিন্তু কোনোবাই যদি অপকৰ্মত লিপ্ত হয়, if they involve in such evil activities, they can curse them as well. তেওঁলোকে সেই মানুহবিলাকক অভিশাপো দিব পাৰে. গতিকে obviously the activity, the act of that greedy old woman, that was not appreciable. It is not it is not acceptable as well. So that kind of woman really deserves some punishment. So this is what Saint Peter did with her. She told that you are no more able to live in such comfortable shelter. From today onwards, you have to build your house like a bird. You have to collect things from everywhere, and with the help of those things, you can make a small shelter where you have to spend your rest of your life. Lot of hard work needed behind that. And again, Saint Peter told that since you're not able to part with a small piece of cake, you're not able to give a small cake to a hungry person who was waiting outside for hours, you just keep him waiting and finally did not give him the cake. So from today onwards, you also have to struggle hard for food. You have to go to the forest and you have to bore those hard dry wood, and then you can get a small amount of food. Okay? So right away, habit boy kukan cut hotere kuti boring. That means khusi tumi tarpra ahar ulai lobo lagibo aru heitue tumi ki kobo lagibo survive koribo lagibo. You have to survive yourself through that amount of food. This is Saint Peter cursed the woman. So that is the consequence of woman's greediness. Mohila garaki lobhar porinamtu etue hol. Too much greediness can't help in our life. Amar jibonot kita ki koribo na sahay koribo nware. Now you shall build. Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. So as soon as Saint Peter cursed the woman that you have to build your shelter like a bird, and you have to collect your food like a bird by boring into the trees for hours. So immediately, before the woman could say or speak anything, suddenly the woman turned into a woodpecker. Through the chimney of her house, she flew up into the sky, and she immediately changed into a woodpecker bird. At a woodpecker Saint Peter কথাটা কৈ শেষ কৰিলা মাত্ৰ যে তুমি আৰু মানুহৰ জীৱন তুমি জীবন মাৰিবা কাৰণ তুমি জোখতকৈ বেছি স্বাৰ্থপৰ. এতিয়া তুমি চৰাইটোৱে ঘৰ সাজিব লাগিব ওপৰৰ পৰা বস্তু সংগ্ৰহ কৰি, আৰু চৰাইটোৱে তুমি কাঠ খুচি তাৰপৰা তুমি আহাৰ খাব লাগিব বুলি কথাটা কৈ দিয়াৰ লগে লগে এটা শব্দ উচ্চাৰণ কৰিবলৈ মহিলাবিলাকে সুবিধা নাপালে. দেট ইজ দ্য পাৱাৰ অফ সেইট. এইটো হৈছে কন্যাসকলৰ শক্তি. সেই ইচ্ছাটো অট'মেটিকেলি খাটি গ'ল. মহিলাগৰাকী এটা চৰাইলৈ পৰিণত হ'ল, আৰু তেওঁৰ ঘৰৰ যিটো চিমনি ধোঁৱা ওলোৱাৰ যিটো চুঙা সেইটোৱেদি তেওঁ এটা woodpecker চৰাইলৈ তেওঁ ওপৰলৈ উৰি গ'ল. This is what happened with that particular woman. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burned black as a coal in the flame. So at the point of time when the woman was baking cake inside the house, she was wearing a cap. It is scarlet. Scarlet means deep red. She was wearing a cap which was scarlet color. That means deep red cap she was wearing at the point of time. Why she was wearing a cap? Because as I told you in Northland, winter season, there's bitter cold in Northland. So to protect themselves from winter and cold, people used to wear cap in such snowy fall areas. And the color of the cap was red. That is what woman was wearing at that point of time. So since her hair was covered with cap, that particular thing remained the same. Her head was there. If you see the woodpecker bird, you can see the top of woodpecker's bird, there's a red kind of thing you can see. But apart from the head, her entire body turned black. Okay, because she flew through the chimney, and inside the chimney, her entire body was burned down. The body to puri goisile. Puri gole ki hoy jay bostu bilak? It become black, kola hoy jay. But the body to kola hoy gol. But why? Because he was wearing a scarlet cap at that point of time. So that is how woodpecker bird looked like. Okay. The Mohila Graki woodpecker bird. But it is woodpecker bird asset. You can see woodpecker bird around us. Woodpecker bird body to color to black. Because the woman was wearing scarlet cap at that point of time. Ronga to be the pinya portion to longa hoy thake baki gotei body to puri jorar karone kola hoy gol. And every country schoolboy has seen her in the wood where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring for food. So every now and then when the country boys, the village boys, when they go through the forest, particularly the schoolboy who was coming back to home, when they go through forest areas, they could see woodpecker bird inside the tree. And whenever they see woodpecker bird inside the forest, what the woodpecker bird used to do, they used to bore those hard, dry trees to get a scanty. Scanty means very little amount. খুব কম পৰিমাণৰ এটা খাদ্যৰ সন্ধানত খাদ্যৰ কাৰণে কি কৰি থাকে গছৰ গা গছটো খুটি থাকে খুটি তাৰ কাৰণে কি কৰে they could able to manage a very little amount of food, and this is what happened with that particular woman. So she turned into woodpecker, and this is how woodpecker bird came to this art. So this is the story of the legend of Northland, and that is the consequence of the woman for her greediness. And the moral of the story is that, so as a human being, apart from living our own life, we have to think about others as well. I mean, and we should have the tendency to help people. We cannot be too selfish. No doubt, we have to think first ourselves. But it doesn't mean that we will neglect the entire mankind. You have to try to make him comfortable. Otherwise, we don't have the moral responsibility and right to consider ourselves as human beings. So, if we did such kind of things, this is exactly happening to women, and this might happen to everybody. So, this is the point, the legend of the Northland. So, I will see you in the next video with one more new topic from your syllabus.